for Jason Venslet, a lawyer who specializes in foreclosure litigation, everything came to a halt. When all things came to a halt when President Trump signed the CARES Act, which put a moratorium on foreclosures. Why am I bringing it up to you today? Because in 2 weeks that moratorium is over. And what happens then? There's a lot of speculations on the market. So I thought that I'd start the day with telling you what some economists are predicting is going to happen. No, not the Armageddon of 2008. Nobody is now saying that we are going to get overflooded with foreclosures. However, there is some potential for some properties hitting the market. According to Black Knight data giant, 96% of homeowners at least have 10% equity in their homes. Why is this data important? Because even if these foreclosures start hitting the courts, if there is enough equity position in properties for some of these for some of these buyers currently seriously delinquent, they may be willing to settle or late fees and all delinquent payments and still sell the property on the market rather than allowing for the bank to go through the process and take the property away from them. According to Doug Duncan from Fannie Mae, their chief economist, there's 4 possibilities that may happen to those homeowners seriously delinquent. And seriously delinquent is everybody that's more than 90 days late. The first possibility is that the homeowner and the bank will renegotiate and do a modification on their mortgage where payments are going to be recalculated and paid on time from then on. The second option is that the buyers, with the equity position that they have in the property, will be able to sell the property on the market outright while settling with the foreclosing bank, which, as I mentioned, with the 10% on average equity that people currently have in their properties, may be a very viable option. The third group of people are those that truly have recovered, and as they recovered income-wise, in the economic sense of the word, they will just make up whatever the delinquent payments are and continue paying on the mortgage as is. Finally, the last group are those that have very little or are underwater currently with their equity position, and only that group will be the one that will end up having their homes taken away. With all the delays in the court systems because of the moratorium, it may take till 2022, 2023 till we see these properties actually on the market. Another news, last week was again stolen by the Fed. Why? Because we were talking everything inflation. We talk about inflation and we pay attention to inflation. Why? Because inflation is detrimental in our mortgage interest rate market. Inflation directly affects mortgage bond prices, and those directly affect mortgage interest rates. So with rising inflation, with inflation on the highest levels we've noticed in very many years, only dictates one thing: rates will be going up. So do not wait. Get into a home, get into a new mortgage as soon as possible. You'll save money on the rate. The Fed, in light of producer price index and consumer price index, has finally stated that, and in their wording, inflation has risen largely reflecting transitionary factors only. So the Fed is saying, yes, inflation is real and it's big. Actually, the highest we have seen for the PPI, Producer Price Index, it's up at 6.6% year over year. But at the same time, the Fed is saying that it's only temporary. Why? Because economies globally are going to be recovering on a completely different level than U.S. economy is. We are obviously leading with predictions for GDP to be in positive numbers, whereas there's quite a few countries, one of the largest economies worldwide, that are still showing negative GDP predictions coming forward. In housing news, housing starts were up 3.6% in May, while the single-family home starts were at 4.2%. Building permits were down a bit. Talking about building permits and building starts, housing starts, it's important to note that there is a new trend that has been already showing up in 2020 and now is quite strong, and that's build to rent, not build to own. Most developers, way back when, built to sell their properties, especially single-family homes. In 2020, what we've noticed is that builders are building homes and they're selling them, but to big investors, big conglomerates, who then keep those single-family properties in portfolios to rent. Why it's important to bring this up? Because this shows the shift in the society as a whole. Because more people want to live in luxury while still renting and not being attached to one property for a long period of time. So build to rent is going to even gain momentum, as some economists are saying, in 2022 and 2023, and has already shown up much stronger in 2021 than last year. So to all those investors looking at this as a potential purchase, maybe a single family buy is a better option than a multi-unit property that in the past was a very typical move of all investors. I also read a very interesting article about the labor market. The labor market is showing shortages on a very strong level, and that's why some developers, just like any and most sectors of the economy, are suffering. There is not enough hands to hire. This also goes hand in hand with the fact that baby boomers who started working in 1970s are now retiring, and the newer generations are less in numbers. Therefore, especially for example in China with the one-child policy, that will affect global economies. And that's all I had for today. Beata Bukowski coming to you from Fairway Independent Mortgage with our weekly economic update. Stay tuned next week.